and Doobie here. What's the play for today? Well, I'm going to dive in and work on a canvas that I didn't like at all. Now, this canvas I made who knows when, and the whole dive-in thing, yeah, that's because there were sharks on it. Just wasn't feeling that anymore. So I made some changes to it and it went a completely different direction. But about midway through this, I started to have a really big problem. I had a background that I adored, absolutely adored, did not want to cover up. I just fell in love with the background, and I had to find a way to deal with that by the end of it. So here's the canvas I'm working on. It's been sitting around the studio forever, and I just wasn't feeling that inspired with it, so my intention had been to put a little bit of gesso over part of it, not to completely cover the entire thing. But once I started, I really liked how the gesso looked on it, so I just kept going. Now, I wasn't quite sure where this was going because already in the first step, the place that I thought it was going, it wasn't going. So where did suddenly that purplish bluish color come from on top? Well, that kind of bled through a little bit, and I used a baby wipe to wipe off a little bit of the gesso to let it stand out a little bit more. And just having the baby wipe on my hand made me just want to feel the texture of paint all over my hands, so I decided to go for a little finger painting. Now, before I dived into this part of the play, off camera, I used something called barrier cream on my hands. And it's like a greasy lotion that creates a barrier between your skin and whatever you're using. It also makes cleanup a whole lot easier. Now, the other thing about this is the paints that I'm using are all non-toxic. So make sure that you know your paints because different paints within the same brand, because the pigments or whatever is used to make them, can actually have different ratings. So just check your labels on your paints to make sure that they have the non-toxic rating. Well, about this point, I started to get a plan in my head. And like before, I have the plan, but I'm so not going to follow it. My plan was to put just a little bit of pattern on here. Use that stencil off to the side that's called Triangular Pathways that I designed for StencilGirl, and just put it in one little area. Not do a whole lot with it, but just a little something. And as soon as I lifted up the stencil and saw how it looked, that plan went out the window because I love that embedded pattern in there so much that I started doing it on other parts of the canvas. So that baby wipe, yep, I just find a clean spot on it and start smearing and rubbing stuff around and seeing what's underneath. You can probably guess this isn't, how shall we say, a highly precise kind of thing. I'm not going to be able to control exactly what's under there because it depends on the paint, what colors, how much I use the baby wipe. You've got all these variables in there. But what I loved about this is that I never knew exactly what was going to happen. Now, this was supposed to be the background for the plan that was in my head. Except there's one glitch in that plan. Okay, you've already seen there are several glitches in the plan. But the biggest glitch now is that I'm loving this background. Does that ever happen to you where what you thought was the background just becomes your favorite thing and you don't want to cover any of it up? Well, that's the place where I'm at, and I thought that was a problem. But nope, turns out that I guess we could call that one an oops, an outstanding opportunity presenting suddenly. I didn't quite realize all the opportunity in it until I put the final touches on this. So as I put the last color on here, yep, couldn't resist a little more finger painting. I'm putting it around the edges because I just don't want to cover up that pattern that's on there. And if I don't want to do it, I don't have to do it. But I definitely wanted something to become the focal image here, so I decided to look through my stash of things and see what I could find that would go with this and not cover up much of the background. Well, I found this colorized vintage photo that I had that I'd cut in a circle from who knows when or who knows what, but I knew that it was just perfect for right here. Now, the next thing I needed was a title for this, and I decided to go with an understated title. Now, the stencil that I'm using there is called Wall of Words that I designed for StencilGirl, and it's got a ton of words on it. It's like a wall of them, and I decided to pick out 2 of them to put down there. And the 2 words I chose are wisdom is. And that's because that couple just sort of exuded wisdom to me. Now those fancy post-it notes, that was my way of masking it off, so I only stenciled the words that I wanted. So one little trick here with stencils and words is if you bring a brush in and close up the stencil gaps that are on there, when you're done, people think maybe you freehand wrote that, so that if you're like me and don't really love your handwriting, this is a great way to get words on there without the pressure of having to make really perfect handwriting. And yep, there's an oops happening there, an outstanding opportunity presenting suddenly. I was not happy with that O at all. So that gives me a chance to show you how I can easily fix that kind of thing by wiping off the white paint that was there with another one of those handy tools, the baby wipe, and then just coming in and painting the rest of the O back in. Well, thanks so much for joining me for today's play. If you've been enjoying this video, I'd so appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. And of course, hit that subscribe button if you'd like to see more of my videos as soon as they're out. And if you'd like to see more of the play, head on over to the blog at acolorfuljourney.com, where there's all sorts of goodies for you, from the newsletter to a free workshop, and of course, all sorts of blog posts and videos. Thanks so much for letting me be a part of your colorful journey.